Right, let's model something. I'd had great plans for my first stream, and I'd spent far too long thinking about what to actually model. And I'll get the iPad on the screen here. I thought, why don't I stick to some stuff that I normally do on my Make a World account, which is vases and lamps and the like. So I designed all these basic shapes for some lamps that we could maybe do today, and some vases as well. However, as usual, I woke up this morning and didn't want to do that, so I've pivoted, and it was inspired by Make a World having their book nook competition, and I've designed some book nooks for Make a World before, and they've been pretty successful. I've had a couple of ideas knocking around for a while about some book nooks to design, but I've got a million ideas knocking around, and I just work through them as I can. So I thought what I fancied doing was possibly some Japanese store style book nooks, which admittedly is an odd thing for a book nook, but I just really like this aesthetic, and I really want to try and design some of this stuff. So these are just some Mid-Journey generations, which I know the minute you mention Mid-Journey and you mention AI, people get upset. For rapid concepting and ideas, it's an incredibly powerful tool. Obviously I have reservations around using this in a commercial setting, this sort of art. However, for simple shape concepting, so you can see like from this one here, you know, some ideas that have come out of it is like the multi-level part above, which is pretty cool. It's just for some general ideas. Don't necessarily copy them exactly, but I do like the fact that there's little things that I just wouldn't have thought of. You know, just things like this sort of mess that sits around, and the lanterns and things like this. And like, admittedly, I'm not sure on the air conditioning unit on the floor. I don't think that's a thing, but what do I know? I've never been to Japan. But there's just a million little ideas in each one that I always think, yeah, it's worth having a look at anyway. But ultimately, you want to come up with your own original concepts. So I took these, and I then used my fantastic artistic skills, as you can see here, to sketch out a rough concept for a book nook. And essentially, you know, I realised what I was doing as I was thinking, you know, those Lego City like shelves that people have, where there's just like an absolute ton of these different buildings, and when they're put together they just look great. But I like that vibe, that like little building thing, which obviously 3D printing is brilliant for, because, you know, you're limited by bed printing size and things like that. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and design something resembling this today in Plasticity. Basic storefront, vending machines. I think I might even make the vending machines their own individual little models that can be printed and placed individually. Awning, air conditioning units. There's this little lamp here, which I think it would be pretty cool if I could somehow get a cob LED into there, but I don't know. I'll just design it and see how it goes. That's the one thing. Often I design these things and then have to retrofit them a little bit to 3D printing, because obviously overhangs. So say this awning here, you're not just going to print that. That's not going to just print in one piece. You're probably going to have to print that in a separate part, and then it's going to get locked into the main body. Just because the overhang would mean you would have supports all along here, which would just be, well, it would be messy for a start. It wouldn't be a nice finish. I think what will ultimately happen here is I'll start modelling it and then change my mind. Well, not change my mind on what I'm modelling, otherwise that would be a waste of my time. But what I'll do is I'll change direction. Just the way Plasticity works, which, by the way, This is Plasticity. This is a little mech I've been modelling this morning. It's not ready, but it just goes to show the type of things you can pretty rapidly design in Plasticity. This took me about, I don't know, 45 minutes, an hour. It's not finished, but it's pretty cool. But Plasticity basically works as, it's marketed as CAD for artists, and when I first started using it, I don't really consider myself an artist. I was a little bit frustrated with Fusion 360 and Onshape, which is what I taught myself when it came to 3D modelling, and they're great tools. But what they are is parametric, sketch-based modelling tools that essentially, you have a timeline and the whole model is computed through the timeline. That's fantastic for lots and lots of things. Like, you know, you can set dimensions, and when you need to change those dimensions, you can zip back through the timeline, change the dimension, and then the whole thing recomputes. And if you design your model properly, you've just got amazing flexibility and amazing ability to jump back and forward in time to make adjustments, which for functional parts is unbeatable. Well, unbeatable is what I did think when I started using Plasticity. Because Plasticity takes an entirely different approach. It's called a NURBS modeler. Don't ask me what NURBS means. It's maths. But it's a really powerful surface modeler, but it's also an incredibly powerful hard surface modeler. If you've ever used Blender with something like Hard Corps, this is that on speed. It is as the quickest piece of software I found anyway for quickly modeling out shapes and designs. And the hardest thing, if you're coming from a more classical Fusion or Onshape background, the hardest thing is this concept of you're not dimensioning everything out and you are modeling on the go, and if you want to change things, you're going to have to physically change them rather than scrub back through a timeline and make edits which then cascade through. Now, thankfully, you've got an unbelievable number of undos. I think it's 50 or 60 undos. It might even be more. I've been using Plasticity now for 18 months, so lots of stuff's changed. It might have been 50 when I started. It could be 3 million now, who knows. So you can undo loads and loads of stuff, and because it's a surface modeler, it's really easy to delete faces and things like this, which means although you are limited with not having a timeline, you can edit things quicker and easier. Now, it being marketed as CAD for artists, I get it, because ultimately artists, especially for video games and things like this, they don't necessarily care as much about, oh, is this geometrically accurate? Is this going to, are these two pieces going to interface in the right way and things like this? The type of thing that you completely come to rely on dimension sketches for. Now, as I say, it's difficult when you first start because you have to get rid of that mindset, but I have got out of that mindset and I absolutely love using this software. For a little bit of background, I run an account called Abstractia Design on MakerWorld, and effectively how this came about was I said to myself 18 months ago, I'd been modelling in Fusion and I'd been modelling in Onshape, and I just said to myself, if I really want to accelerate the way my learning in 3D, I'm going to start designing a model a day. And I said to myself I'd do it for a year. Well, I'm now well over 18 months into it and I have designed a model a day. I've got 630 models on my MakerWorld account here, all of which are available to commercially license or for personal use are just free to download. So have at it. There's some nice stuff on there. The great thing about MakerWorld obviously is it has a very generous points scheme which helps support creators. It has now built-in commercial memberships which have been really, really good. I'm not going to carry on shilling MakerWorld and Plasticity. We'll get into some modelling. But just to give some background as to how I ended up here modelling and how I'm now sitting on your computer monitor yattering on, was this. It was a classical, you know, photo a day, model a day, piece of artwork a day, challenged myself, and took hold. I've got, you know, 30 odd thousand followers now on Abstractia Design, and I've never looked back. It's one of the best things I've ever done, and learning plasticity is one of the best things I've ever done for myself. This is my job, this is what I do, which is, I know that'll be hard for a lot of people to believe, but it's true. You know, between this and the Patreon and the commercial licenses and stuff, like, it's not like it's an enormous income, but it's more than enough to get by, and ultimately it's what I want to put my time in to grow. So that's why we're here live streaming. So you can come along, you can see the modelling, and you can hopefully 3 times a week, if I stick to my own target, which I think I will, because 3 times a week's all right. It's essentially, it's just me offering a little bit of a look into how I go about making these models, because ultimately I get asked a lot of times on MakerWorld, you know, how do you design these, what software do you use, and this is just a way of doing it. I would be sat at this computer anyway making these models, and hopefully it'll be fun streaming. Won't lie, it's something I've been putting off because it's pretty nerve-wracking, but you know what, your first stream's always your worst stream, and you'll only get better, so we might as well give it a go. So let's get started with a book nook. I'll get rid of this file, which shouldn't have been open anyway. Yes, new file. Now, I'm not going to go into like in-depth tutorials on the software. Firstly, I'm not an expert. I'm completely self-taught. There will be legitimate 3D modelers who will look at the way I work and potentially go, this is a war crime against 3D modeling. I make a model a day. It's been working for me. I think sometimes people get hung up on how difficult 3D modeling is, and it is to start with. I certainly find even now with plasticity, we'll probably see it when I'm modeling this, there's these little bits where you just go like, why doesn't that work? But the only way you get better is by practicing, and this is me practicing. So if we think, I've got my little sketch here for the book nook, so if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my iPad, which is what we were looking at before. I'm going to start with a basic shape. Now we can start with a standard size, so if we think, what do we think for width? 140, right? 140 millimeters by 200 tall. Do we think that looks like a standard? Yeah. So let's get the basic boxing out. Now with plasticity, sorry, as you can see, it's just drawing sketches effectively, and then extruding and cutting and insetting, and it's quick, very quick. Right, so I think we'll have a little, actually, should I get this image? Yeah, maybe I could get this image in it. No, I won't. So we'll go for a little cut here to give us 2 separate parts. I hate X-ray mode unless it's actually needed, but as a default, no thanks. Right, let's get some sort of like middle section going. So all I'm doing here is drawing a line and then using the cut command to cut it out. So we're effectively now got 3 blocks, and you can see up here, these are all the solids in the model. You'll quickly learn that my hierarchy organisation is bad. That is one thing I will say about plasticity. It's not. It's just a function of it not being based on a timeline. You can end up with a lot of things in this like outliner that you do, and I end up coming back to them and going, all right, yeah, I've completely lost track of what's what. Really, I should be naming every solid as I go. However, there's one thing that I think sometimes when you rename a solid and then you do an operation on it, it takes a new default name and removes the name that you gave it. So it sometimes feels a little bit pointless, but you should really look after outliner, because with really complicated stuff you just get completely overwhelmed by various names. Right, so if we consider that as the aspect, the like divider for the bottom and then the top, so if we get in a basic dimension for a door, so we can just think about the scale of everything else. So you can press V to change the origin point, so you can essentially set it as the point you're moving from, and then when you hold control you can snap it to various things. So I set it to the bottom there and snapped it down. So do we think this looks alright for a door dimension? Yeah, I think it looks about alright. So let's do Shift I and imprint that curve into the bottom body. Now when I get rid of this, you'll see some vertexes have been set there, which means that we can now treat that as a different face. So I can extrude it out. Let's extrude it out 5mm. Right, now it's like a little door sticking out. So now another one of my favourite commands is the ISO param, which is on Control R, and it basically just lets you draw in new edges, which can get pretty powerful pretty quickly. So let's put an edge there, and then actually what I'll do is, because we've now got an edge there that separates this face from this face, I will click that one and do offset. And now what we can do is we can actually I don't want to do that because I don't want it to be perfect square. But what we could have done there is offset it to get a perfect square in the middle. But I don't think I want a perfect square for the window. Actually, I think what it is, I want this further down. Because ultimately we've given ourselves a perfect square at the top there, haven't we? And I just feel like the door shouldn't have a perfect square window. It looks a bit weird. So let's actually now try and offset. So offset. Yeah, cool. Right, let's insert that a little bit. Now, should have actually waited for it to compute before I hit the confirm. So this is when I talk about how designing things in 3D and then designing things in 3D for 3D print are two different things. You've just constantly got to be thinking about overhangs. So say if this was to print as a standard, if you just print it as a block, right, well this overhang is a disaster. Well, it's not a disaster because it could bridge across there, but it's tricky. So there's things like putting in fillets like that, but that's actually, I've just glossed over that, but that is one of the most powerful things in Plasticity, is it's filleting and it's chamfer an engine. You're just selecting an edge and dragging it, and it is so quick to go from raw blockout models to refining them. I think what I'll do is I'll just limit that there for now, and we'll put in, I'm just selecting the face and pressing space to change the reference plane to it, so I'm looking straight onto it. I'm going to take the ISO param again, I'm just going to select the face, and then I'm just going to make sure I'm at that same dimension there. Do the same again. Right, and then I think what we'll do is we'll just add a little square at the bottom, like you sometimes have a panel on a door. There we go, cool. Now again, rough as houses, but well, rough as a Japanese house. Well, a Japanese, effectively corner shop. That's what I'm going for anyway. That's the aim. The only thing I'd say with this design I've like kind of knocked up in my head is like I feel like I don't have any like vintage, like classic Japanese tiles. It almost doesn't look very Japanese, so that's something I might end up at some point bringing in a sloped roof with a more classic, like peaked, tiled with wood beam across the middle roof. We'll see. We'll see. We'll get there. I mean, I probably won't finish this today on this stream, but as I say, 3 times a week. So yeah, we should be able to finish it together. Right. So let's just treat that as a rough block out for the door. Now, I think what I would like to do is get an awning in here just so I can get an idea of scale. So I'm going to set the side as the reference plane so we can have a look at this here. Now, let's have the awning. You don't really want the awning coming down. Well, to be fair, it could come down over the door. It just makes it more difficult to fix it later. But I'm going to get myself out of this idea of thinking about it for 3D printing, and with this design anyway, I'm going to design it, and if I need to retrofit it for 3D printing, I'll just basically do that in my downtime. Right, so that gives us a basic awning shape. Now, awnings sometimes have a little bit of a bit that hangs down, so just add an isoparam, and then I want to extrude it, not push, because push will continue the slope of the top, whereas extrude is taking the face and directly extruding it down. Right, so that looks good. We'll add a little, do you want to add the bevel now, or fillet, sorry. Yeah, let's add it now. Now let's add a little bit of detail to the top of the awning. So I'll do an isoparam, and then if you hold shift and twist the mouse button, you can effectively multiply how many you divide in the face by. So let's do that, and then what we can do is we can select all of these edges. This might not be the best way to do this, but works for me. And then if we hit P to do a pipe, yeah, there we go. The pipe automatically cuts a face that it's on, so it's actually added this that like ribbed pattern. And then if we add, let's get rid of this sketchy because I don't need that. Select these two faces, and yeah, add a little fillet to the edge. I think what I might actually do is isolate this, select the face, and then I'm gonna select all these, and I'm gonna just put a little mini fillet on them. Yeah, there we go, and it just gives them a little bit of a like wave rather than just sharp edges. It's not so bad with 3D printing, but with when you're designing like assets for other things, having straight edges, it's like gaming engines like more faceted, more like curves to catch light. Sometimes these, so say for example, if I turn the edges off here, obviously we've got highlighting on the edges at the moment. If you turn the edges off, things disappear pretty, well not disappear, but they just don't stand out as well. Whereas if you can see here where I've added all these fillets, it's just easier to read. Now obviously you're not going to have highlighted edges unless you're doing some like cell shading in a game. So I think technically you are supposed to add fillets and chamfers to most things, but I do them when I see fit. Right, so what should we do now? Should we make a little vending machine to go in here? Yeah, let's do that. So let's select that face, so we're working on it now. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to not have it the same size. I think I might make this its own entity rather than it being part of the main body, because ultimately that just means that a user can print it off separately, and that if they don't have a multi-material system, they can effectively go, right, I'm going to print this in a different colour, and it means you can take advantage of the fact that you might have different filaments, but you might not have, you know, an expensive 3D printer, or not even, or just you might not have an EMS system for multi-material. So where possible on our design stuff, I do try to assume people don't have EMSs, but it's not always possible. So what I might do, I might just have a little look for some reference for some like vending machines, because these Japanese vending machines, because my drawing is, well, I mean, let's be frank here, I'm not getting a huge amount of inspiration out of that level of incredible detail. The kind of detail that Van Gogh would be jealous. Right, let's have a look here. So, interestingly, quite a lot of these Japanese vending machines seem to be quite... Now, I can only speak being a Brit. I can only really speak the type of vending machine I have here, and these all seem quite wide. Now, that's not how I've done it on my doodle, so I think what I'll do is I will actually make it wide, square at the top, with some clear shelving, letterbox. Yeah, they're all actually quite... What's this? Oh, this is like hot meals. Oh, Kickerman, that's who makes the soy sauce. This is the problem. This is the problem with Google image searches, is I end up just going down these like absolute rabbit holes. So yes, we're all very interested to know what the mini burger vending machine is, but I'm here for a purpose. Also, I'm a bit of a aficionado of random weird drinks whenever I travel anywhere, so all of this is deeply appealing. But let's just stick to this image here. So I'm just going to save this. Right. We'll call this vendor. That's a web page, so I probably won't be able to use it in Plasticity. I'm not sure. Let's see if we can import it. No, that's fine. It's not exactly rocket science. Also, I can keep jumping to it on my monitor here. You won't see it because it's not in the scene, but so anyway, this here, let's just accept this is wrong. I'm going to move it across here just so we've got a bit more space, and this is where you see how good Plasticity is. It's just like, yeah, right, okay, I'll just drag this out. It's actually a little bit like Tinkercad, not that I ever particularly used Tinkercad because at that point I was deep in my if you can't add dimensions to sketches, what's the point of it mindset, which is wrong. Everything has its place. So, right, let's treat this. I think those dimensions look about right. Let's do a dividing line here because if I remember correctly, it wasn't exactly at halfway. We'll do a little offset. We'll drag it in. Oh. Right, and now what we can do is we can snap to that. And let's pick that as the reference. Got 3 shelves, so let's put a shelf there, a shelf there, and a shelf there. Let's drag them out so they are not protruding too much for a 3D print. Should maybe do a little bit more. Actually, they're a little bit chunky, aren't they? So what we can do is grab these 3 faces together and drag them down. Plasticity is so cool. Right, so that gives us the basic window. Yeah, I made a mistake because when you look at the reference I was looking at, it's actually not a perfect square. There's a little panel here, although these ones don't have that. So no, we'll just keep the window the way it was. And put the like coin panel like down here. So let's just draw, it was like an arc, wasn't it, the coin panel. So if we bring the coin panel down to there, and then I think if we do not a tangent arc, we'll just do a 3-point circle. Yeah, let's go for something like that. Trim off the edges, and then we can get our trim modes, join those lines together, imprint them on here. Yeah, and then we get a little face. We have to get our temporary plane first. Extrude and have it removed from the other one. Right, so we get that there. Now let me have another look at my reference. Right, I need a big letterbox. A big letterbox for your tasty snacks to drop out of. Let's just put that here. I'm going to actually add a little bevel. And you will insert. I can't believe how much I'm using isoparam and like Imprint in the curves. I feel like I don't use it that often, but I'm using it all the time here. I'm just going to add a little chamfer there now, just because it will need it later. Right, so let me have another look at the reference. Yeah, I need some like little squares and stuff in here for indicating like your coins dropping out and stuff. Let's use that same shape. That's another good thing with plasticity. You can just nick geometry and shapes and move them around and reuse them. So let's set the point as the edge and then move it on the X-plane and hold Control and select that edge so it's aligned. Wicked. So let's bring this out like it's a little coin returner. Let's bring this out, and that's where your coins go. Let's add some fillets to these edges. Oh, something weird going on with the curve there. You see that? How it's and it snaps. It's fine. Just pop a little bit back there, and you see here, this is how like you end up building up these little micro details that if you're having to draw a sketch for every single thing like that in something like Fusion, you'd be there all day. Because for some reason they weren't. I think what I might do here is I might make a little bit that like hangs out to make it look like a little trough that your money would spit out, your change would spit out of. So I'll divide this across the middle, I'll divide that by there, and then you know what I'll do here is I'll select that geometry, press Shift D to make a line, so it's now a curve, sorry. Select this face, then that, and mirror it, and it'll use this as the central point for the mirror. So basically what I've got here now is perfectly proportioned between the two sides, rather than me having to manually go off and try and do it myself. Select this face, rotate it, change the pivot point to there. Will this work? Of course it will. There we go, and we'll just tilt that out, and then we grab this and do a little insert. It just, you know, hints at spit and change out. Fillet. Cool. This is exactly what happens every time I model, by the way. I've gone from I'm designing a corner shop to I've spent 10 minutes micro designing the coin distribution and change spitting out system, which it's just as well plasticity's quick because I make it work. Let's put some little fillets on here so these edges have got some for overhangs later. Right, let's have another look at the reference and see if there's anything that stands out. I like this deal here, this line and then this little insert, like looks like it's probably that they come on like their own little unit, but whatever, we don't need to know what it does, we just need to think it looks good. So let's cut that there, let's give us a separate piece, and then I'll select this. Let's mirror that across, join these two parts together, add a little bevel. It's not a bevel, that's not a fillet, it's a chamfer. There we go. Another cool thing we can do is, because now we have two edges here, if you select those edges, I think that one too, and you do yeah, see how you get this, like you're effectively adding it to both sides of the cut, which just gives you some like nice surface like detail. Let's see what happens if we, yeah, there we go. And then just join these back together because we don't need them to be separate parts. It just added a little bit of detail. I'm going to do this. So this is where the food spits out, or the drinks. Maybe look at the reference again. I think I might just leave it. I might be overcomplicating the detail required. At the end of the day, it's a 0.4 meter nozzle, little 0.4 millimeter nozzle, so it's not gonna pick up every single fine little bit of detail. Might actually, let's try bring that line along there. So if we pick this as the reference plane and then we cut that, yeah, cool. So now if I select those two, yeah, there we go. Oh, I did the other side as well because it saw through the piece. Right, let me just save this just in case we get any crashes. .3D printing folder, which is gigantic, and let's just call it corner ship. Right, cool. So what we'll do now is I'm going to just add some little fillets and the like, just to try and don't fillet. Yeah, let's leave it like that. To try and as I say, just make it more readable when you've not got like edges, which is obviously how things look when they're printed. Rejoin those. Right. I feel like this space here is weirdly empty. I feel like there would be a notice that would say if your food gets stuck, tough titty, you're going to be ringing this premium rate phone number for 3 hours. So we just give some sort of indication of that. So if we imprint, I don't know how this turned into modelling a vending machine stream, but it did. I think just to make that read as if it's like a panel, I'll put some little like bolts in the corners. So let's just say that's the corner, eh? Put it there, and then if we select those two, we can mirror them down. Get rid of these curves. I'm not one for keeping curves. Some people really keep everything, but I find that, you know, if I wanted that curve again, I can just press on the geometry and do Shift D and it duplicates it as a curve. So you find yourself stealing a lot of curves back from stuff you've already designed. And it just keeps everything much neater because curves get crazy if you're keeping them all. Right, let's select the faces. Yeah. Definitely should have just designed this bolt once and then mirrored it. In fact, I might do that in a second. Just add a wee chamfer. There we go. Yeah. Just reads as a panel now. You can imagine the guy coming and unscrewing that. To either A, fix it, or B, take the passive earnings that he's read about on Instagram for 3 years and that he thinks is now going to make him a millionaire. So, right. I'm not going to say that vending machine's finished, but I am going to say I should move on. So let me look at my iPad again at what I doodled. You might as well have a look as well. So straight away, we've changed that. It's loads bigger. Now this here, I think was like a capsule machine in my head. Now, do we go and look at capsule? Yeah, we do. We go look at capsule machines on Facebook. On Firefox. Japanese capsule vending machines. I think this was the type of thing I was thinking of with the like semi-bulbous front. They're obviously much smaller, but do I actually care? Oh my god, look at this. We think, oh here, no, this is exactly the type of thing I was thinking of. Yeah, but it is much smaller. But let's just do a big version of that, because that's cool. Oh wow, only... That's on Australian Amazon. A sweet $339. What more could a 40-year-old man want? Please don't be WebP. Yes, it's JPEG. Right, let's add this in as a little bit of a reference image, just because it does help to be able to jump back and forth. But watch this. After I've said my organisation's so bad. Vending machine named. I'm even going to do this. Actually, this is pointless because it's one thing, but I'm going to do it anyway. Control G. Put it in a group. Vending machines. So later on we can add another vending machine there, such as this one we're just about to build. Right, let's just... Where should we plonk you? I feel like you would be... Oh, hang on a minute. Yeah, we need to keep... merge you two. See, that is exactly there. If you notice now, that vending machine is called Extruded 3 and there is nothing in that group, so it merged to that panel, which rendered the naming and the grouping pointless. Now, I think if you'd done it the other way around, it would have done it the other way around, but I feel like what it should do is, if there's a custom name, just assume that's the name you want for the joint part, but it doesn't. So I say it doesn't. I'm not actually on the latest version. I'm on Arch, by the way. So the version of Plasticity that's in Arch is in the Arch AUR is a little bit behind. On my Mac, I have the latest version, but maybe it does that on the Mac. I just tend to do the majority of my modelling here. But let's rename it again because I'm a glutton for punishment. Put that into that group. Right, wicked. So let's just grab this and let's bung it there. I feel like what I might want to do actually is make this door loads bigger and have more of an open front so we can actually see into the store, and I can have some lights in there and possibly like a little like checkout counter and like some like shelves. As it stands, it's possibly going to be a bit dull just on a door. If we want to get into that like super satisfying dollhouse, almost like little things, little world, I think being able to see in would be a better idea. So what we could actually, yes, is a cool idea. What we could do is we move this door across the side when I'm ready to do it. I won't necessarily do this right now because I want to design that capsule machine that we just found. But we could treat this as a sliding door and have it off to the side, and then have like a large hole, and then we could actually, yeah, then we could see inside the store, and we could design the till, a couple of little shelves. I mean, the coolest thing, do I do this? It would be cool, is the back wall being like chillers and having a little cob LED rope light which Maker Supply sell, which is a cool thing about MakerWorld, that if you do want to integrate electronics and bits and bobs into your 3D prints, they do have quite a lot on there. And when I then upload it, you can say I used this light, I used this switch, I used these little wiring connectors, and it means you can effectively say to people, look, this is what I did, buy them, stick them together. But that's down the line. Right, let's get this added. Let's import. Wow, gigantic. It's now genuinely gigantic. Right, let's scale this bad boy up. Now, I'm not going to do it at scale because I want to do my own version. And what I'm going to do, actually, this is actually probably a pretty cool thing to do, because what we've actually done a lot of the more so far is like square cuts, insets, extrusions, whereas there's some nice like curved surfaces here. So I think what we'll do is we'll design this hella funky, weird shape. We'll go flat at the back just so it can go flat against the wall. But yeah, we'll design this, and then we can cut this out and design. I could actually make that in a separate part, so you could just glue it in and use a different coloured filament. Big old twisty knob, and then the hole. Right, cool. So I'm just going to design it the wrong way, just so I can keep looking at this image rather than twisting the image. So back plane comes along, it goes up, comes along a bit more, got a little foot, let's have this coming out a smidge, go up a bit, steal the point there by pressing shift on it so we know we're locked to it, and then let's go up like this and like that. Now, do I think that's good enough? Oh, the music stopped. You're all probably over the moon, but keeps me chilled. So yeah, let's bring this down. This is too far up. So you can just grab the points on the sketch. Down. I think I might actually bring this down a little bit as well. And let's extrude this out just to get the basic shape. Ooh, fat boy. Right, rotate Z 90. Bada bing, bada boom. Do not know why I said that. This is going to be one thing about streaming, is I'm going to realise the absolute tosh that I say. Right, cool. So big old fillets here to curve this off, because that's what that's like. Let's. I think if I put a little fillet there, it stops you putting mega. You need to have fillets on edges if the fillet is going to transition through them. I've just put a chamfer in, that's why that's not working. That's one thing I do that all the time as well. One way of chamfers, another way of fillets, and when you zoomed out, you just sometimes don't like notice it so well. Yeah. And then let's put like, yeah, cool. Oh, how have I done that? Oh, right, yeah, because I was going to cut that. Ah, no, so this should come out to the same amount there, right. So, let's see if this works. Control R, isoparam, let's grab this, and I think if I just pull this, yeah, see it takes the angle of the surface above, which is really cool for extending it out. Now if I extruded it rather than pulled it, it would go straight. Another thing that there's bits with plasticity when you've used other modelling programs where things just work the way you think they're going to work, or the way you think they should have worked in other programs. So that's really cool. Stuff like that's just so fast, and you can see how artists just rapidly iterate on, especially like video game assets and things like that. Not that I actually understand anything about video game asset generation or you know, how you rig it afterwards. Maybe it's a nightmare, I don't know. Right, so yeah, let's add a big old fillet on here. Ah, see, that transitions down. Oh, actually we don't want it that big anyway. There we go. And then let's add a fillet here. And then how, yeah, there we go. Super cool. Right, so kind of got the shape. I have a feeling this might have to come down, which is that, yeah, again, it just does what it's meant to do. That would require redoing sketches, and you know, you can just kind of, you definitely lose precision when you're using plasticity versus a classical parametric card, but you just gain this ability just to be like, looks right, looks wrong, looks right, looks wrong, brilliant, go, bang, done. Right, wicked. So let's isolate that so I've got less visual clutter, except I would actually like to see, so let's unisolate, and I would like still to see the image. So let's select the image and select this, and then isolate it with full stop, so I can see them both. How long have I been streaming? An hour, Jesus. Right. So, what sort of curve do we want? I think I want a chamfer there, actually. Oh, actually, so it comes back quite a lot more, doesn't it? Right, let's do that then. So, base, use that as reference plane, shift A for the line. Another cool thing is you can be like, right, well, I like the angle of this line, press shift on it a couple of times and it gives you a guide that follows it. Right. Sorry, the Amazon man's at the door, but he'll just have to use the porch. Let's do that, and let's join these two lines. Let's see what. Oh, let's not join them. Let's join these two lines, and then add a nice smooth bevel. Press C on the body, cut it out. Bam. So now we've got this swooshy, and we can now build that into it. So I think, where's the middle point of this line here? Because we treat that as like the middle of the arc. Yeah, cool. And let's use this as a reference line. This might be a bit funky. Actually, let's just hide this a second. Let's bridge these to this here. Whoa, what's going on there? Right, okay, they're on different planes, that's why. Scale X 0, stick on the same plane. Bridge. Do I think that's good? I do not. Maybe I'm just overcomplicating it and I can just do a yeah, I'm totally overcomplicating it. Let's just do a, oops, not delete it, a circle, but then just stretch it so it's not a circle. Yeah, much better. Right, so then we can, I think what I might do is bring this in so it's obviously not on the edge because it needs to have a bit of a lip. Oh yeah, well that way actually. Yeah, let's change the reference plane so it's to the middle of this. So we know we're in the middle of the part. And then we can do that. So we've only got half of it, and then because we've got that as our reference plane, mirror it, join it together, and now we know we're perfectly in the middle of the part. Yeah, I felt it. Yeah, I like it. Actually, do I? Might be too far of a fillet. Yeah, let's do that. And mirror it so you don't have to do it again. Join it together. Cool. Yeah, let's go. Right, let's do these bits. So we'll do the little bit where the ball drops out. I wonder what that actually is there. So just tell you how much you have to pay. And then the twister. The twister. Let's just eyeball it. Let's just go off pure vibes. Speaking as a man who's been to Japan precisely 0 times. Join, right. Now place it. Actually make it. No, don't want to make it bigger because there's that little bit to go above, isn't there? Let's add some fillets there so we don't have any sharp edges for when we want to fill at the front. Let's actually join it to the main body with a boolean. No. Let's bring this in. Yeah, much better. And then that's actually kind of the inverse of that shape. So this is what I was saying before about how you can steal geometry. So we've selected all those edges, pressed Shift D, and now we have that shape again. So let's rotate it 180. Oh yeah, and there's a bit that sticks out further there. tell this is a mistake. Because when it comes to printing this, this is going to be somewhere that's a medium. Print it on its back, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, just use the back surface there to print it, so it prints. But then again, that ruins. See, this is the other thing with 3D printing. You have to think how the layer's going to go. So if you print it this way, I'm pointing at the screen. You can't see it. If you print it, so this is the bottom, and it prints that way. The layer lines go this way, which means you get really high resolution for curves. If you would put it on the back side and print it this way, the curves are like planar with the 3D print, so that's how you then get that top texture that you can really visibly see the layer lines, which, you know, it's fine, but like some people aren't in love with it, which I'm not. I would always try and print things in an orientation that was going to work best. Right, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a bit of chamfer on that so it has an angle, and I'll bring both these in and bring this one just the one. Bring this one really in and hope that we get away with it. It's the type of thing where you put it in the slicer, you'll know straight away whether it's going to be a pain. You just don't want to have to faff around with supports for little minor things like that. Probably going to need supports there because curved edges are not great, but we'll just see. Now, big fat twisty dial, which I'm 99% convinced is the main reason these machines make an absolute fortune. The things inside are obviously, you know, if you're into that sort of thing, amazing. But for me, it would be the of twisting the dial. So let's bring that out a bit. Like chamfer it, because chamfer. And then we need the nerve. I didn't think I'd be saying that on the internet today, but life is full of surprises. So the handle, and the handle's got like a taper, like a curve. Which, to be fair, so does this, but let's not overcomplicate what nobody in the universe will notice, except me, which is unfortunately where everything goes wrong, because I'll notice it. Yeah, I'm going to do it, aren't I? I'm going to try and make this curved, which is not difficult at all. So let's pick this as the reference pin, and let's just say we want a starting angle. It's a bit like this. Let's mirror the line over the other side, and then let's bridge it. And let's do G1 tangency. Now, there's the thing: tangencies in G1, G2, G3. Do I know what they are? No. I know that they have various levels of accuracy and tightness of curve and control points. However, if I was to sit here and pretend that I knew precisely when you should use G1, G2 and G3, I would be outed as a fraud immediately. rather than in several months' time. I'm going to say that that elevates this to mealy 400th place in the Maker World competition to an easy 200th. And these are the small marginal gains that we live for. Why won't you connect? You will. Right, well, you know, I think that's pretty cool. Let's just add this in. This again, the little key that the man comes and unlocks and takes his treasure. Oh, there's one at the top there as well. How much do I care? Unfortunately, too much. I like the way they've just spent 5 minutes talking about how adding pointless overhangs is a nightmare, while I am professionally adding pointless overhangs. Let's really bring this inside just to... yeah. Whoa. Australian vending machine. Oh, actually it was an Australian vending machine, wasn't it, when we... I can't believe I'm actually going to look at the key pattern. It's a circle with a slot in. Let's just accept that. So what I've done there is offset the face to get a nice line that is perfect. Oh my god, get rid of the temp plane. And again. Right. Boom. Now my mind goes, does it need to be bigger? However, it doesn't. I'm being ridiculous. So let's take this and cut it, well, difference it with this, but make sure we don't get rid of this. And now what we have is, oh, it would help if I didn't delete it, a part that fits in there. So you could print that different material, glue it on. I think probably would add tabs, but I thought this would take me a couple hours. I'm very swiftly going down a rabbit hole and it could take me 3 streams. Right. So we could cut this door off and then that'll let me move it. So if we just take that as a plane, draw a line down there. Now it's a separate body. And we can move it to like just trying to think how we can make space for. See again. Oh no, I never did that one. Let's actually just rename these. Let's pretend I'm professional. Capsule window. Capsule machine. Now you see why I put vending machines. think it might be best to do that. And then this one can go elsewhere, but it'll give us a big open area here. Part of me is like, do we just get rid of the door? Or do we put the door behind like that and pretend, yeah, that's a good idea. Yes, that is a good idea. Because it's a sliding door. Bring this out a bit, or maybe just make it a bit narrower, but we'll just bring it out a bit for now, just to, yeah. And it could be like, oh yeah, the sliding door. Oh yeah, actually, if we then duplicate that door across to there and bring this out, maybe fix that, but that's okay. But then it kind of reads like two big sliding doors, and then we can have a big opening here. Oh, let's go wild. So let's, oh yeah, I actually do need to add a break in because they're not part of the front. So let's assume this is the opening. Oh yeah, and then because that also isn't part of the thing yet. So let's add another ISO param there. And then what we can do is we can do an offset. No, let's delete that. Hide this. Maybe offset's not the answer. Maybe I just want to manually do it. Yeah, cool. Whoa, I don't think I actually took any notice how deep I made this, which is far too deep, which is fine because it can just chop the end off it. But actually make that depth-wise. That's too bad. It just adds a lot of time for printing, for stuff that's going to be hidden in the bookshelf anyway. Let's bring back in that awning. Right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hide these for now because I don't need them. I'm going to bring this up just so we've got some top down. Oh, I've just had a great idea. Staircase up the side, like a fire escape type thing. Right. Should have a little look at some interiors of Japanese stores. Very much like British ones. I don't know what I expected. These all look very high end. Yeah, I mean the MoMA is not a 7-Eleven. Not getting much from that, we'll just wing it. Right, so let's have here a till and a little checkout type thing, like a little plinth. Let's just hide all the other stuff because we don't need it. Oh, what's this? Oh, what's that? Oh, it's the key from this. I didn't join them. Grab X and then snap it to the middle of that circle, and then yeah. Don't think we need this now either. Right. I think this might have to be pretty simple. Just thinking, if I make the like checkout area here, and I want some freezer units at the back, and then maybe a shelf there, like a freestanding shelf. But then where would the cashier go? I don't think I can steal any more space that way. Well, I obviously could, it doesn't have to actually be a shop, so I could do what I want, but... Right, let's just get started with this anyway. Let's have some semblance of scale, so just assume the middle of this door is like waist height. See, that's the type of stuff Plasticity is really good at. Right. Now, this is a nightmare because if you're going to print that, let's just hide everything else. Actually, rather than hiding, let's just isolate these. I think what I might do is I might just add like a little supporty thing, and then I think it'll path round. We'll see. I'll actually try and have my key presses on the screen next time. I did have it set up, but it looked whack. I wasn't particularly keen with it. Right, let's try see if this works. So pressing F brings up the command palette where you can search for things. Curve array, is that what I want? You're damn right it is. Boom. So it looks, actually I'm going to do some, just get rid of that a second. I'm going to put some fillets on here just to, rather than having to fillet 3 million of them at once. So it looks cool, in my humble opinion, but it also adds a support. So you've just got these little micro bridges. So I think that might be worth doing just for when we come to print it. Again, no great model survives first contact with a slicer, as a famous man once said. Do I want to join all these together now? I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually duplicate them, and I'm going to group them, and I'm going to hide them. Now, this is something when I talk about not having a parametric timeline, doing stuff like this, just making copies, putting them in folders, hiding the folders. I tend to do it if I'm going to do like big joining operations, because as much as you've got lots of undos, if I wanted to come back to this later and I was like, do you know what, I need to change something really fundamental about this that could be a really awkward thing to model, at least you've got that starting point there, and it doesn't add a huge amount of overhead. I mean, admittedly, if it was a really complicated part, it might, but I kind of like having a backup. Why are you not combining after I've said all that? But I don't want to keep tills this time. Just merge them all into one. So there's this, and then there is this backup here. Right, cool. So we fillet thing on the top. Feel like what happens with tills, bearing in mind I worked on a checkout for a good decade, I should really understand the layout of checkouts, but let's just pretend that this is a Japanese checkout, so it's totally different. So, but there's normally like a little slide where, like when you want to get home at 10 o'clock at night and the person's packing their bags at a cataclysmically slow rate, you can chuck down the shopping and it slides down and piles up on them. So I think what we'll do is we'll bring this down just to give a bit of a lip. Oh, we can't actually bring it down anymore. See, this is what I was saying about having copies. Because what I probably want to do here is now bring this up, because when I'm pushing this down, I'm pushing into this. Yeah, just make it a bit thicker. Again, selecting faces, shifting them around. Plasticity's the goat. So let's whack the ramp of hoying you shopping at people. Rotate V, let's whop it there as the pivot point. Oh, no, we don't want to go that far. Yeah. Some little fillets in here just so when you do the other, it transitions all the way around rather than getting killed at the end there. Oh, what time is it? 1 hour 24. I thought this might happen once I got started. Yeah, see, the problem is though, where's the person? Because what we really need is the... Oh yeah, why don't we just cut it out? Yeah, let's cut it out. Be really glad I did all those fillets now, and I'm just about to do this, but and the person can stand there. Oops. Shall we add in a little shelf here for the basket? Because let's just assume this is baskets only and we're not getting, you know, people buying the full weekly shop in the tiny Japanese corner shop. So the customer could come along, put the bag there, checkout operators there, and then we need the till screen thing here. I think I made the till screen fairly basic because if I was realistic, it would be hovering in the air on a mount, and that will be a gigantic pain. PlayStation 1 ass till. I'm going to convince myself this is the button pad. I'm just deciding how ridiculous I want to go with the numpad. Bear in mind it won't be a numpad because there's not just like there's 9. So I'm just making like construction lines here just to, I think I might try the pipe trick to just add some detail. Worked well. Yeah, let's make that smaller, 0.3, 0.2. Okay, we're in, let's try making it 4-sided and should we rotate it 45 degrees? There we go. Nope, that's not it at all. Let's just do, yeah, let's just do circles. 0.2. So these are going to be pretty, like, fine on a 3D print, but they make me feel good about myself, so. I may have spoken too soon by saying they make me feel good about myself. Significantly better. Wow, it's like a chocolate bar. intended to design a corner shop, ended up spending most of the afternoon designing a vending machine and chocolate bars. I'm actually just going to cut this off for a second just so I can easily isolate it. Because what I would like to do is all these faces. Yeah, I'm going to have to just select them manually. Did not intend that. Just want to make it a little bit shallower, but it's not going to work, is it? Because it's extrude. I don't want extrude. I want push. Oh, mamma mia. Yes. Why won't it let me push? Will when I select less faces? F, push. There we go. Awesome. There we go. A little bit less sticky out. And then we can join them back together. Right, I think I'll stop shortly and we can come back to this on Thursday. He says as he continues to fill it, because it is the most flow state thing going. If you've got ADHD or something like that, 3D modelling is about as therapeutic, easy for me to say, therapeutic as it comes. I just love adding little insets and offsets and just to add like just little bits of detail, just like speaks to more going on than just blocks. It's one of the things when you model like mechs and they're like, it's just so satisfying just like getting a basic shape and then cut, detail, slice, detail. You know what, I'm going to go out there and say that's not a bad checkout. I mean, other than the dairy milk bar for its buttons, but probably should have just modelled each of those and then arrayed them, but I had an idea and I went with it. Add some safe edges for the overworked member of staff, and that's a problem. Yeah, get rid of that. Actually, get rid of that as well. I might just add a bit of a manual one in there because that's right on the edge. Beautiful. I've also cut the whole thing in half here, but hey ho, join together. Right. I'm going to say that that is a till. Right. So let's call it quits for today. Hope you've enjoyed that. I'm going to do the obligatory feed the algorithm, like, subscribe. My aim is 3 times a week to stream modelling. Obviously it won't all be this, like, you know, there'll be some of the stuff that you see on Maker World, like vases, lamps, etc. As you saw right at the beginning, I started doing quite a bit of hard surface modelling for mechs and the like, so you know, that might be kind of cool. But yeah, if you just want to chill stream where you can learn, I hate to say learn because I'm not doing a tutorial and I shouldn't be doing a tutorial. However, what I will say is everything I learned in Plasticity, Fusion and Onshape was all self-taught, and it was all self-taught by simply watching people doing it. So you might learn something. I'll put the link to my Maker World page in the description. Probably be on the description for the VOD because obviously this is already live. So go check out my models if they're the type of thing, if you run an Etsy store or something like that and you like them and you think, oh, you know what, this person doesn't seem completely insane on the camera, which is a rarity on the internet today, and you want to sell my designs in your Etsy store, there's a monthly commercial license tier which helps support my work. So yeah, just go check them out. Thank you very much for either A, watching live, or B, if you're watching this on the VOD, thank you very, very much, and definitely hit the like and the subscribe because there's only one way YouTube are going to realise I exist, so I would appreciate that. Anyway, thank you very much, and I will see you on Thursday. Ta-ta for now.